Okay. Are you ready for more? Say it. I'm ready for more. All right. Let me say this right now. How many times have you ever said to yourself in your struggles, I just wish there was someone who could help me, show me the ropes, what to do here? Yes? Now, then I'm sure a vision of myself came up, right? No. And you had this idea, said, wouldn't it be amazing, like, if I could get like a Bill Gates or one of these guys to just help me out? Yes? Well, you know, when you have someone like Bill Bartman, who we're fortunate to have with us here, who we're talking about billion. What's the word? Billion. How many millions is that? 1,000. And it's not one. It's not 10 million. 10 million is a lot of money. Yeah? Raise your hand if you think 10 million is a lot of money. How about $50 million? What about 100 million? Can you imagine 10 times 100 million or more? So if you have someone of that, in that category, who's willing to come here and help you, are you appreciative of that? 2 ways to show your appreciation. 3 ways. Number 1, when we bring them on. Number 2, by listening and giving your full attention. And number 3, by learning it and using it. Yes or yes? Yes. All right. So I'm very, very thrilled to have Bill with us. He's an amazing guy. And let's bring him back for a couple of new lessons. Bill Bartman, come on, guys.
Okay. Come on. Get down. Okay, everybody have a seat. Thank you.
All right, we'll let you off.
We're going to talk about 2 topics in the next couple of hours. One of them is managing employees. We're going to do that first. And then second, we're going to talk about raising capital. And these are the 2 most important things you need to know about running a business. Last night we talked about the 2 most important things in developing your personal future. That is raising your self-esteem and learning how to set and achieve goals. And tonight we're going to talk about the business side. And since that first topic is how to manage your employees, that film, the Michael Buffer shot, was done in the Thomas and Mack Arena in Las Vegas the night I wrestled Hulk Hogan. Now, for $200,000, he will take a dive. And, I mean, this guy's like 8 foot tall and like 350 pounds, and his biceps are about the size of me. And I'm going to tell you a little Hulk Hogan story because most people don't know this about him. He's really, really a gentle man, in spite of that rough, tough, gruff, macho thing that he does where he snarls at people and rips their head off. What we had done is we had flown 5,000 of our employees out to Las Vegas for a weekend. Just a crazy, wild party, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But in anticipation of the big weekend, we had to have an event. You can't just take people to Las Vegas, although there are plenty of things to do in Vegas. You need to have a company event. You need to have something that they could enjoy and give the company that special feeling about. So we said, well, hey, Bill will wrestle Hulk Hogan. They thought that was cool. I didn't know him. I just thought, oh crap, if I don't pay him, he's going to beat the hell out of me. And remember last night when I said nobody's ever beat me again? He would have been the guy. So we're staging this whole event. The whole event's going to last about 4 hours, and we're going to really entertain all of our employees and their spouses. And so he and I are sitting out in this runway, out in the side of the Thomas and Mack Arena. It's one of these big, long driveway kind of affairs off of the center stage, and it's out of sight of all the people sitting inside the arena. And we're sitting on Cleopatra's barge, which we rented from Caesar's Palace, because that was going to be my entry vehicle. My get-up, my wardrobe, was a Roman centurion. So last night when I said Dennis Rodman and Mel Gibson are the only two people I've ever seen wearing a dress, I didn't tell you about mine, because it was, just wouldn't have been that cute. So he and I are sitting on this barge out in the parking lot, essentially. And we're having to wait until our cue, until we get to go in and do our thing. And we're having a great conversation. We're talking about all kinds of cool stuff. And all of a sudden, he got kind of melancholy. And I said, Terry, what's up? What's happening? And he goes, oh, brother, yeah, I'm kind of upset. I don't do a very good Hulk, but that's kind of the way he sounds. And he said, my son, who's 10 years old, has a soccer game, tomorrow morning in Florida. And by taking this gig, which I was paying him $200,000 to do, he was not able to get another flight out of Las Vegas to get back in time to get to his son's game in the morning. So here's this big, rough, tough guy that could just whip all of us at one time, who is sitting out in Las Vegas in a parking lot on Caesar's or Cleopatra's float, and his only concern is his 10-year-old kid and a game that he's not going to be able to watch. And I thought, wow, what a neat guy. What a neat guy. Fortunately, we had a G4 at that point. A G4 is a Gulfstream 4. Well, they say it stands for Gulfstream 4. I told somebody it stands for God 4, because it's a great airplane. It's like a 14-passenger private jet, 2 bathrooms, front and back, stand-up shower, 2 beds, couch, full TVs, well, actually 6 TVs. If you got to fly, that's the way. So if you want to know how to go to New York, that's the way you go to New York. So we put Hulk Hogan on our plane that night and flew him back to Florida. So he got there in time for his game. Okay, that's all I know about Hulk Hogan. So if I tell you any more stories about him, I'm making them up, okay? The first topic is managing employees. They are the key to your success. And I know Harv has already talked about this extensively, and I agree with everything he said. And though I will say some things differently, we are not in disagreement on any item. This is a key element. So the most important thing you can do is start right, and most people don't. Most people, most companies, most employers, and by show of hands, how many people here actually have employees? Okay, that's a good number. And if I were to embarrass you, I would ask you, how did you hire them? How did you find them? How did they come to you? How did you know they were looking for work? How did they know you were looking for somebody to do the work? And the answer would be almost always the same. These were people who were unhappy at their last job. These were people who were not good at their last job. These were people who couldn't keep their last job. And they found out you had another job. And so they came to you, and most of you hired them. And what do you get when you get that? The bottom of the barrel. And I don't mean to say that in a bad or untoward fashion to anybody, but think about it. When you're hiring unemployed people, why are they unemployed? There's usually a reason. And so the very first secret of success in hiring and retaining and running a good job is you hire people that aren't unemployed. You say, well, that costs you more. Well, sometimes it does, but honestly it doesn't. And what you'll get is somebody good. You'll get somebody that likes their job. You'll get somebody that's satisfied with their job. You'll get somebody that can do the job they've actually been hired to do, and now you're trying to pull them away from their good job to come to work for you. And that's really not as hard as it sounds. In fact, it's really surprisingly easy once you ask them. Because competent, motivated employees are the keys to success. It's been a very, very long time since I got into a fist fight with anybody, but I got real close with Ted Turner. And I think I can whip him. The fight would have been over whether Ted Turner was responsible for Ted Turner's success or whether it was the employees of Ted Turner's company that was responsible for Ted Turner's success. Because I absolutely believe no CEO is successful. No CEO is successful. We get the status and the prestige and the money when our employees push us up. It's as simple as that. No one of us, I don't care how smart you are, how good you are, where you went to school, or what degree you have, no one of us can run a company, control a company, manage a company, and pull a company up. No one person can do that. The only way a company succeeds is from the bottom up. When you have good, solid employees who want to win, want to succeed, want to help you succeed, then it becomes terribly easy. Absent that, you cannot do it. There was an Italian economist by the name of Vilfredo Pareto, came up with the 80-20 rule. Harv talked about an equivalent a little bit ago. But the 80-20 rule is that 80% of the productivity is accomplished by 20% of the people. It's true. Now, statistically and mathematically, you may actually find an anomaly where it's 79 to 21 or 78 to 22, but conceptually, it's just the way it is. And you can test this theory. You all work somewhere or have self-employment somewhere. You know that you have star employees. You have people that are really, really good. And you know how much work they produce. You know how much value they deliver. And whether it's you or the people that work next to you, you know. Then you also know there are people drawing the same paycheck, making essentially the very same amount of money, and they aren't delivering anywhere near that level. That's called the 80-20 rule. So in essentially every shop across America or Canada, 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work. And that's just the way it is. And you say, well, what do I do about it? Do what we did. We said we accept. We understand. We're not going to change nature. We're not going to change physics. We're not going to change the psychology of the human being. We're going to do, instead of a karate move where we're going to stop somebody cold in their tracks, we're just going to go with it. We're going to learn from it. We're not going to resist it. We're going to work with it. So we went and stole all the 20%ers in our competitors. That's exactly what we did, because we know it's true. So we went down to our next competitor, and we knew which ones were the best employees down there because our employees knew and their employees knew. Everybody knows. And we offered them incentive to come to work for us. Now that's a twofer. When you take your competitor's best employees and leave him as trash, you go up and he goes down. We did that to 4 of our major competitors. I'm telling you the truth. And you say, well, gee, that makes perfect sense, but how do you, well, by the way, if you do this, the people of the Chamber of Commerce will not like you. Now, I am somewhat the Antichrist in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because I did that. We created an environment where we stole everybody's best employees. Our theory was we would not hire anybody that was unemployed. And you say, oh, gee, Bill, you're discriminating. And I say, too bad. And I'm not here to be politically correct, and I don't run a business to be politically correct. You run a business to make money, right? And it's nice if you could do both, and if you can, you should. But if you can't, remember which one's the most important. When you want to be nice on Sunday. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that just in a very legitimate, very honest way. And some people confuse that. You know, they think their mission in life is to have to save everybody. And I say, great, that's a wonderful mission, and you're going to hear about mine at the end of this presentation. I have one too. It's easier to save people after you get rich than it is while you're trying to get rich. So right now, you need to spend your time, your effort, and your energy doing what you can to get to where you want to be. And then when you get there, it's really easy because you'll have a lot more. Where if you give away what you have now, you never really get there. And you give away what you have now by hiring bad employees. By hiring people who can't do the work you're asking them to do, you're creating an untenable situation for both of you. These employees are not going to deliver, and you're not going to be happy with them. They're going to know they're not delivering, and they're going to be unhappy with themselves. All you're creating is anxiety. These people, even if you don't terminate them right away, they know they should be. They walk in every morning living in fear that today is the day. They're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking you're going to find out how bad they really are. Wouldn't it be easier just not to have them there? The answer is obvious. If you only hire the 20% that produce the 80%, you don't end up with 100%, you end up with 400%. And that's just simple math. And will that always be true? No, but it will most of the time. And if I'm off by 10%, aren't you still ahead of the competition? Because remember, competition isn't it's the old bear hunting thing. You don't have to outrun the bear. You have to outrun your hunting buddy. That's all there is to it. You know, the old joke is if you're hunting and you're bear hunting and all you have is a pistol and the bear is chasing you and a pistol will not stop a bear. Shoot your buddy in the leg. Last night you saw a slide with Dick Cheney. Tonight you're hearing me. All you guys from Oklahoma that way? Yeah, pretty much. We pretty much are. We could do a drill, but it would be embarrassing for some people. So I won't do it. I'll just run you through it and tell you about the process. If I was in a small group, in a workshop group, I would make you tell me why you took the job you have if you're employed by someone else. Because it's really a great, great drill, because you have to start reaching into your data bank and you start finding things that you didn't know were in there. And sadly, most people think that employees come to a company and the reason they are hired and are willing to work for you is for the money. Do you think that? You know the answer is no, because they just said check for it. And the answer is no. That's the last reason. Money's not unimportant, but it's not the most important. There have been survey after survey after survey after survey of why people leave one job and come to another job. And here they are. Number one, across the board, is that they find the new job to be more exciting, more fun, more adventurous, or more challenging than the old job. Now think about it. Compare it in your own data bank, your own memory. You know, if you have a job that you're making some decent money, but the job sucks, that's terrible. You hate going to work. Now, if you have a job that you really like, even if you're not making as much money as you wish you could or wish you would, you still jump out of bed a half hour before the alarm clock goes off. Because it's fun, it's exciting, it's challenging. You feel like you're becoming somebody. You feel like, hey, this is okay, I'm doing something. I'm making a difference. Instead of, hey, I work for the man and I get a check. And so people who make the decision to come to work for you on money and money alone are always disgruntled employees. It's just a matter of when they're going to show up. The second reason, and this is Maslow's chart. If you saw Maslow's chart, the basic hierarchies of human needs, at the very bottom of the pyramid is all those basic things in life: food, clothing, shelter, those basic things. And then as you get them, you start moving up the pyramid. When you get to the very top, on the top of the pyramid is a thing called self-actualization, where you make a difference, where you get to be Mother Teresa, where you get to give your life to somebody else, where you get to help people who need the help you're giving them. That's self-actualization. And everybody here does it. We just don't know it. We do it in the form of giving money to our church. We do it in the form of giving money to United Way. We do it in the form of giving money to the Katrina Fund, or the Tsunami Fund, or a cancer research. Pick the one you give some money to. That's what you're doing. You're dealing with a higher need. You're dealing with that, I want to make a difference, I want to help. And that's wonderful stuff. It's good stuff. So if you have it, don't expect your employees not to have it. They want to have it. The people want self-actualization. They want to make a difference in life. And it's hard, if you've got a shoe factory, it's hard to say, what in the hell is my difference here? So you have to find one. In the collection industry, we found one. Our mantra for every single 31 of the 3,900 employees was that we were going to change the industry. We were going to change the way they did business. We were going to help people. That's why people came to work for me. They loved it. They knew that they had the power not just to get a paycheck and some perks and stuff we're going to talk about, but they were going to make a difference across the United States. We ended up with 4.5 million customers, and my 3,900 employees felt good about that every single day. I could have given them half a paycheck, and they still would have shown up for work. So if you've got a business where you can find a way to make a difference for anybody, in your community, in your neighborhood, in your city, it makes no difference, then make sure your employees are aware of that because they're hungering for it. They really are. Third reason people take jobs after the first two, and these are in absolute order, is career building. They'll work for you because they want to work for somebody else. They like you, they like the job, but that's not the end job. They don't plan on being there for very long. They just plan on being there long enough and to learn some things from you and go to school on you. That's okay, as long as you know that. Because the model has changed in America, boys and girls, and I think we all know that. 100 years ago, you would go to work for the company store and you would be guaranteed a job for life. That's just the way it was. Your grandparents, if they worked on a non-agrarian system, they worked at the same place probably their entire working existence. And your parents probably had something close to that. We don't. Right now, employees are extremely mobile. They know there is no such thing as job security. You don't have to say Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, Q West, and you get it. Or now General Motors. There's just no security. And employees know that. Employees are people, and they're smart people. We keep acting like they're dumb. We as parents try to spell in front of our kids thinking they don't know what we're doing. They know. Well, grown-ups are just kids that got older, and they know. And so we assume we're smart and we know some things, then we think they don't. Come on, that's egocentric. Employees know. Employees know that they're going to be moving from job to job. That's okay. And last is everybody's favorite, money. And when I interview 90% of the CEOs I work with, they always put money first. They think that's the reason they have their employees. They think that's why people show up to work. They think that's why they can attract the best and the brightest, and everybody thinks they have the best and the brightest. But if there was a remake of the movie Dumb and Dumber, they'd have a new category called Dumbest. And some of these people would fit in there, because that's just the way it is. And after you are successful, assuming you are, in hiring good, intelligent, hardworking people, then you need to figure out how to retain them. And so there have been national surveys on retaining employees as well. Because it doesn't do you much good to finally land a good one if you aren't going to be able to keep that person for an extended period of time. The training period can be extensive. In our company, the training is 7 weeks. If I hired you in today, no matter what position, whether it was receptionist or CEO, you would go to the same training for 7 weeks. You get paid for it, but for the next 7 weeks, you would not be working, you'd be training. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 7 weeks, even if you were the CEO. And you would learn every job in the company. Not because I want you to do every job, I only want you to do one. But I want you to know what every other job is. I want you to know how hard they are. I want you to know how difficult they are. And I want you to know how you can help that person do their job better and how ignorance makes the job harder. We're people who are good, solid people and caring people and loving people, but they just don't know that those people over in the IT department really need to have their information in a certain way. Or that the people down in the accounting department, those bean counters as we lovingly call them, really go anal if the stuff isn't all in the right place. Well, knowing that, and knowing how they think and how they work and what's important and what's relevant and what's not, then everybody gets to work, as Harv calls it, in a team, where everybody understands the program, that we are all in it together. So it's important to figure out how to retain people. And perks was not the top on the list. Respect. What do you want in your relationships? We all want it. We want respect. Lou Holtz came to our company 20 years ago, and I'm stealing some material from him, and I told him I was going to. I told him then, and I was right, I did. And here it is. Lou Holtz says that there's three things that everybody wants in a relationship, whether it's a husband and wife, or an employer to an employee, or a parent to a child, or a friend to a friend. In any relationship, there are three things, three questions that you subconsciously ask all the time. And as long as you get the right answer to those three questions, it's a good relationship. But the moment you get a bad answer to any one of those three questions, the relationship starts going to hell in a handbasket. And they're real simple. Do you like me? Can I trust you? And are you committed? Now you know, and you can play the game inside your own head, those are the three things that are most important in all of your relationships. If you are in a relationship with your spouse, but all of a sudden you just don't like the way they do what they do, where's that relationship going? Or perish the thought, you ever get to the moment that you feel you cannot trust them? That's the most fragile thing of all. Or thirdly, you find out they're not as committed to the relationship as you are. And I'm using marriage because it's easier, but employers and employees want the very same thing. They just want respect. And you can give them respect in 1,000 different ways. The second thing they want is appreciation. People want to be appreciated. Let me show you one of our ways. Let me ask a question first. Now, all those people who have employees, show me your hands one more time. Okay, now keep your hands up as long as this is applicable. If you have an organizational chart, keep your hand up, otherwise lower your hands. Okay? If you have an organizational chart with every single employee on it, otherwise lower your hands. So there are some people who have an org chart with every single employee. Terrific. How many employees do you have? 7. How many employees do you have? 3. I need you and you to come up here. Would you come up here just for a second? Okay, you need to take that end, and you need to take the middle. You take the middle, and you're going to, Aaron, you're going to have to walk off stage. This is my organizational chart. This is 3,900 employees. Now, why is this important? Because every single employee in my company knows exactly where they're at. Did you ever see one of those t-shirts that show the Milky Way and it has a little sign that says, "You are here"? That's what this is. It's saying, hey, you're important enough for me to put your name on a piece of paper. You're important enough for me to know that you're an employee of my company, and I know where you work, and I know who you work under and what department you're in. We have 51 floors of the building in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Every single floor has one of these on it. Every Monday it gets revised. Every Monday, because people come and people go. That's the way life is. And every Monday there's a new one put up. Now I'm going to ask you if you would roll this up for me. Would you be kind enough to do that? Thank you. What does that cost? A $200 printer. What does it cost for 8 employees or 7 employees or 5 employees? A big chief legal pad and the number 2 pencil. It costs nothing. And what does it say? What have you just said to the person? Yes. You said, hey, I know you're here. Thanks. I appreciate you. You don't have to suck up. You don't have to say things you don't mean. You don't have to say things that aren't, genuine. But what does it cost you to tell the truth? Yes, thank you for being here. Yes, I appreciate you. What does it take to know your employee's name and use it instead of, hey, you? Unless his name is, hey, you. What does it take to know an employee's spouse's name? Not much. What does it take to know something about their personal life? And I'm not talking about prying, and I'm not talking about stalking, I'm not talking about sneaking up and looking in their windows. But when they talk to you about things that are going on in their home life, what does it cost you to remember that Wayne Learned's wife's name is Margie? What does it cost you? Nothing. What does it gain you? Everything. Because what you're saying to people is, hey, I know you're here. I appreciate you. I'm paying attention to you. You're an important individual in my life. Thank you. And if that's what you mean, and it is, we love our employees. And I say that honestly. I love my employees. And I mean that in every sense of the word. And I'm certainly not ashamed to stand up here and tell you that. And I want them to know that. And I want them to feel that. And you can say it in 100 different ways. How many of your employees have their own business card? Every one of them should have one. If they are the janitor, if they're the receptionist, thank you. It matters not, is it? Thank you, thank you, thank you. See, they thought sitting in the front would be like really, really good. They have to do work down here. The only thing to be worse sitting here would be in a Gallagher concert where they're smashing watermelons or something. Cheapest thing in the whole world. But if you, on day one of an employee coming to work, if you have for them their box of business cards, in many, 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 many instances, it'll be the very first time they've ever had one in their entire life. How do you feel about yours? Makes you feel important. Makes you feel like you're somebody. Why do we think they're different? Just because you're an employer? 2 words, ER instead of EE. And we're talking cheap stuff. We're going to talk expensive stuff in a little bit because I do some stuff that's pretty lavish. But this stuff every single person in the room can be doing. And you can be doing it tomorrow and should be doing it tomorrow because it costs you nothing, and what it'll get you is an understanding from your employees that you appreciate them. Third item. Employees want to see the vision. They want to know where the company's going. Remember, we live in this mobile society. We live in a culture now where there is not job security like our fathers and our grandfathers saw. So they want the next best thing. They want to know that you know what it is you're doing, and they'd like to know where it is you're going to take them and their family. We as the owners of the company, the employers, we think it's all about us. When am I going to retire? When am I going to sell my company? When am I going to be rich and famous? When? And it's all about me, the employer. That's the way we think, we employers. But every minute of every day, our employees are asking the very same questions for themselves. Where are they going to be next week? Where are they going to be next month? Where are they going to be when they retire? Will the company still be around? Will it still be in business? Will it relocate? 100 questions. They're just like us. They worry about this stuff. They wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning with the same cold sweat over the same issues that we have. Only they're just seeing it slightly differently. We're worried about the banker calling. They're worried that maybe the company won't be there. Same problem, just described differently. So when you have a vision statement and a mission statement, and later we're going to talk about a business plan, and that's really important stuff. When you have a vision for the company, you should share it. Every single employee should know where you want to be 5 years from now. And they should hear you say that often. And they should know you mean it, and you believe it, and you're sincere, and you're genuine. Because you ought to be. You shouldn't be lying to them. Remember, they're smart. They will know if you're lying. So you can't just make something up and try and sell it to them. They're not stupid. Although we treat them like that on occasion, we shouldn't. Smart people should recognize and appreciate other intelligent people know the difference. Vision statement, absolutely important. And then last but not least comes the old standby perks. And again, if you were interview the Fortune 500, they will put that number one. And it's last. It's last in employees' hearts and minds. Yes, they want them. Yes, they appreciate them. Yes, they're tickled to death to get them. But it's last. They want the other three things first. Not unimportant, just not the most important. Perks can be anything you want to give your employees. And depending on how solvent your company is and where you're at in this position of life, you get to decide how much you want to spend or how little you want to spend. When we were very, very small, we would do token things like $50 bills at Christmas time, because that's all we could afford. One day, we had a Sunday. And you say, gee, isn't that on the seventh day the Lord rested? No, the other Sunday. Spring in Oklahoma. It was really, really nice. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. Collection sucked. We were having a bad day. But it was a beautiful spring, sunny morning. I declared a Sunday. I sent out a company-wide email and said, we're all going outside. It's a beautiful day. Let's all meet outside. We emptied the building. It looked like a fire drill. It was great. Knowing I was going to do that, we had sent somebody over to Walmart, and we got a couple hundred Frisbees and a couple hundred footballs, and we called the local Domino's and told them to bring some pizzas. And everybody rushes out of this building, and we're all sitting out in the grass laughing and giggling, having a good time, just playing hooky. We just played hooky. It cost me nothing, hardly. It's a Sunday. I mean, these are things you can do. These are things that don't cost you much money. After the hour was up, we went back to work. Collections improved. Go figure. You know, there's another story about us in a tavern, but we'll save that for later. And it took 2 whole days, but no, it was a great story. We had great perks at the company, and let me tell you about some of them. They grew as the company grew. And as we were very, very small, literally from our kitchen table, the perks started out being something where we would invite employees to our house for dinner. A handful of them, because that's all we had. Now, what does that say to them? You're welcome in my home. The most sacred place all of us own. And when you invite them into your home, boy, what a nice thing. How many, and don't answer, how many of your employees have ever seen your home? And yeah, they don't live necessarily the way you might live, and they don't dress quite the way you might dress, but that doesn't make them bad. It makes them a little different. And so maybe you have a cookout on the outside, but you still have something. You invite them to your house. One year we decided, well, gee, you know, we're now up to 25 or 30 people. We ought to go somewhere and do something special. Well, all we could afford was a pontoon boat. We were not very rich. So we rented a pontoon boat, got a couple kegs of beer and a whole bunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Spent a day out in the river drinking beer and throwing fish bones in. The catfish loved us. And the employees loved us, too. It was cheap. Took 1 whole day. They laughed and giggled. Nobody got too big of a head. They all showed up for work the next day. Inexpensive stuff. Absolutely inexpensive stuff. Over the course of the growth of the company, we migrated upward to a point where we had free on-site daycare for 600 children. Free on-site daycare. One certified teacher for every 3 children. Oh, it was the largest daycare. I say past tense, I left the company in 1998. The largest daycare in America. We took children in at 6 weeks, all the way up to the 5 years. And then we had a summer camp during the summer where we'd take anybody under 17 years of age for 12 hours a day. Every parent had an eyeball monitor on their computer. So you could be typing away if that was what your job was, and most of it, we were a collection company. It was clerical, administrative, technical, people that did a lot more work with their fingers and a headset than they did with their muscles. But they could look at their eyeball monitor on top of their computer while they're doing their thing and watch Johnny or Susie 50 floors below in a daycare. Every lunch, every day, they get downstairs and have lunch with their own child. Now, how valuable is that to a parent? That's the most important thing. Because I'm sharing with you the secrets. The secrets are treat your employees like you'd want to be treated. I'm going to challenge that in just a second, because there's a friend of mine by the name of Sandy Berardi who's written a book called Never Offer Your Comb to a Bald Man. And as I see somebody's bald head back there, hi, you reminded me of the book. The theory is that the golden rule is wrong. The golden rule says, I have hair, I should give you my comb. I want to treat you like I would treat myself. But you wouldn't appreciate my comb because you don't need it. So instead, we should think about it differently. Give people what they need and they will give you what you want. What do employees need? They need comfort. They need security. They need to be taken care of. What's the single most important thing in their whole being? It's their children. So we started with that. What's the second most important thing to most adults, most grown-ups? It's health insurance. So we provided free health insurance. We were absolutely self-funded in our policy, which meant we could approve every claim. So if you had a $500,000 heart surgery, or a kidney transplant, or needed to go to Mexico for chemotherapy, you did. We had no exclusions, no exceptions. People appreciated that. What's the third most important thing? That's your education and your children's education. So we offered free tuition to all of our employees if they wanted to get more. And then we gave them $1,000 a year per each child to put in a trust fund for their college education. Now, I'm not that generous. This isn't generosity, it's reciprocity. Generosity is when you just throw it out. Reciprocity is when it's a two-way street. Now, the difference between me and most people is I started. Most people do the other way around. They wait. They wait for somebody to give them something, and then they give it back. That's their idea of reciprocity. Mine is quite the opposite. My theory, very simply, is you throw it out there first, and it comes back. Not always from the people you threw it to, but it'll come back, and it always does. So my employees would have died for me. They would have killed for me. They would have done anything for me. Why? Because they loved me in the same way that I love them. But the perks didn't stop there. We had the standard vacation, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, depending on tenure. But then we had a different kind of vacation policy also. And you saw one of the events. Every year we would take all of our employees and their spouses on vacation with us. We would take every single person who was employed by the company, even if they started that Monday, on the vacation. And they each would bring one person. Hopefully their spouse, but not. We didn't care. And we rented a cruise ship one year, rented an entire cruise ship to go to the Bahamas. Went to Las Vegas and wrestled Hulk Hogan. Rented 27 747s to fly 6,000 people for a weekend in Orlando. It was the largest airlift since Berlin. No, literally, it was. We moved 6,000 people in 27 aircraft. Every 45 seconds, a 747 left Tulsa International. Now, the neat thing, I mean, this is kind of like you know, if you're a parent, you understand what I'm about to say. On Christmas morning, when your child opens up the present, that's the joy that a parent gets. Try imagining sitting in a G4 at 41,000 feet, circling Tulsa, and 27 747s are leaving, one after another. And these are people, in some cases, who had never been on an airplane. These are people who had never seen an ocean. These are people who had never been on vacation with their own spouse because they had children or other things. Neat stuff. Now that's what you can do when you get rich. Before you get rich, you have to get there. And the way you get there is having your employees work their butt off for you. And they knew that. I would tell people very openly on day one that I would hire them. This is going to be the best job you've ever had. It's going to be the hardest job you've ever had. And if you can't make it here, I'm going to fire you. There's no mercy. This is the old analogy of you're the captain of the ship has crashed, you're in a lifeboat. There's 10 people in the lifeboat with you. Capacity 10. The 11th person swims up. What do you do? If you let the 11th person into your lifeboat, all of you may drown. The answer is obvious. You cannot let that person in. And that was our theory on dead wood. And we told people that on day one. We said, sometimes you're better off working at Dairy Queen. Yes, we pay better. Yes, we have great perks. But if you can't handle it here, the frustration and the anxiety is going to kill you. So if you can't run at our speed, you ought not be here. Perks are important, but they don't need to be as lavish as I did. They just need to be what you can afford. Right? This making any sense? Number 5, real simple rule from a guy who's had 3,900 employees. Never negotiate salary. And virtually every employer does. Employee shows up during the interview hiring process and they start talking about expectations and salary ranges and what did you make at the last job and what will this job pay, and almost invariably there will be this disconnect. And at some point the employee will want more than the employer is offering, and the employer will win, they always do, and say, well, I'm sorry, but we just can't pay that amount of money. Would you take the job anyhow? And you know the answer is always, yes, I will. And what have you just created? A disgruntled employee. On day one of the relationship, he thinks you're a tightwad. On day one of the relationship, he thinks you don't value him or her as much as they value themselves. Is that true? Yeah, you just said so. So the simple solution is, you can do what I do, and it works for me, and maybe it will for you. I describe the job, and then I ask him a very simple question. What would you consider a fair salary for performing this job well? What would you consider a fair salary for performing this job well? And they will come up with a number. They will. They're smart. And when they come up with a number, you get to smile at them and you get 3 choices. And you only get 3. Here they are. You can give them more than they ask for. And you say, are you stupid? No. Let me explain. What's your name, sir? Wayne. So Wayne, if you came to my office and you were looking for a $25,000 to a $35,000 job, and you said, and I said, Wayne, what are you looking for? You said, Bill, I need $32,000. Well, I know the range of the job you're looking for is 25 to 35 at my shop. Could be 55 to 75. It makes no difference. But for the example, I know I've got some fluff in it. I could say yes and knock you out of $3,000 and say, oh, I got Wayne for $3,000 and he's here for $32,000. Or I could say, Wayne, how about if I give you $33,000? And you look at me like you just died and went to heaven, saying, is this guy on drugs or what? I'd say, no, Wayne, I want you to be a good employee. I want you to work real hard. I want you to be a good person that we can always have faith and confidence that you're going to do a good job for me. And if I give you that extra $1,000 on day one, could I expect that out of you? You know you're going to say yes, because you're still getting giddy that you got an extra $1,000 you didn't know you were going to get. And I still had two left on the table that we never have to talk about. And even if you had said 35, the high part of the range, and I could have found a way to give you a little more if I chose to, that's one of the options. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a friend for life. I've started on a great relationship. Now, we can still screw it up, you and I, but mostly we're off to a running start, as compared to the disgruntlement of you having told your wife you're not going to settle for anything less than 32, and I beat you down to 30. And you have to go home tonight and say, hey, honey, got the job, but the bastard's only paying me 30. What's she going to think about me? What are you going to think about me? Pretty simple. Number 2, you could give them exactly what it is they ask for. So when Wayne asked for 32, I could have said that number. Or number 3, I could thank Wayne for coming in, because the number you asked for was more than I'm prepared to pay. And I'm not going to negotiate. I'm not going to give you less than that number, because it's just, if I do, all I've done is create a disgruntled employee. Number 6, and it's all about leadership. And we call this, beginning of the slide, managing employees. And managing is such a bad term. You manage cattle. You lead people. And think about it. You don't want to be managed. And the best way to manage people is to do stupid things with them, and they will leave you in a heartbeat. But instead, if you were to lead them, if you were to give them, lead by example and show them who you are and show them what's important, they will follow you anywhere. Now, there's the old adage about a guy walks up to 2 bricklayers and he looks at one bricklayer and he says, "What are you doing?" And they're both doing exactly the same thing. They're throwing mortar and slapping brick, throwing mortar, slapping brick, throwing mortar, slapping brick. And he walks up to the one guy and he says, "What are you doing?" "I'm laying brick." Turns around, looks at the other guy who's throwing mortar, slapping brick, and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm building a cathedral." Now, how different is that? One employee is going to be with you forever, and the other one's probably already looking for work. You lead by example, and you lead by walking around. With 3,900 people, I was never so busy that I couldn't make every single floor of our building at least once a week, even if it was at a fast pace. And I traveled a lot. I was on the road a lot. But leadership is leadership. Your people want to see you. That sounds egotistical, and people go, "Oh, gee, I don't want to be pompous. I don't want to be, one of those kind of people. I don't want to be Donald Trump when I grow up." Well, fine. I don't want you to be him either. Besides the bad hair, I think he's a jerk. And I do. Because Donald's like Ted Turner. He thinks he did it. Now, if you don't know the story, Dad gave him 25,000 apartment units on his 21st birthday. I know, we weren't born in the right family. But Donald thinks he is the reason the company is successful. Your employees need to see you. Number 7, measure results. Starting with the premise that employees are intelligent, and they are, they will do exactly what you measure. It doesn't matter what you say. It matters what you measure. So in my business, we're a collection company. The only thing that really mattered was money. What were your collections? How many dollars of revenue did you bring in? Because that was maximum important. Now, the dress code and body piercings and personal hygiene and crazy crap you might otherwise do, those are not unimportant, but the most important thing was collections. So if you were a top collector, I didn't care what you wore. I didn't care what time you got to work. I didn't care what time you left. I didn't care anything. I was consistent. Now you say, "Wait a minute, I can't do that. We got to have rules." Why? Why? And I'm not trying to be stupid. I'm asking, why? What do those rules do? Well, it makes everybody feel good. We're not trying to make people feel good. We're trying to run a business. We're trying to run an enterprise. We're trying to get rich. And the way you do that is you make money. So do you really care how long their hair is? Do you really care what color it is? Do you really care what they're wearing? As long as it doesn't offend your customers. And in our business, we didn't have any. We were a telephone business. So all it bothered was the people sitting next to them. We said, "Hey, if you could collect as much as they could collect, we wouldn't care. But since you can't, shut up and sit down." Honest. There are 3 C's to being a good leader. And to be a good leader, it's simple. Again, we try to make it terribly complex. And I think we talked last night about Wharton Business School or Harvard Business School, and they will tell you in books that big of how to be an effective leader. They're wrong. 3 things. You need to be clear in your communication. You need to be able to speak clearly to the people you want to perform the task, your employees. They have a right to understand what it is you're asking them to do. They need to know what it is you want them to do. So you need to communicate clearly. After you have told them what it is you want, Wayne, I want you to do this job, and this is what the job is, and here's how I want you to do it. As soon as I say that to you, I should then go to concurrence and say, Wayne, do you understand? Do you know what it is I'm asking you to do? And if you don't, here's a great time for you to tell me. And you say, no, Bill, I thought it was supposed to be this, not that. I say, no, Wayne, that's not really what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is this. And that's kind of close, but I'd rather have it this way instead of that way. Thank you very much. And this can be very friendly, and it is very friendly because we're just talking to each other. I'm telling you what I want, and I'm making sure you know. And I'm going to make you or ask you to repeat it back to me, at least in some form or fashion, so that I feel good that there is, in fact, concurrence, that you know what it is I've asked you to do. And then the third C is compliance. From time to time, I'm going to check on Wayne, not because I don't trust him, not because I don't like him, not because I'm his dad or I'm his babysitter. I'm not. I'm his employer. And I have communicated clearly what I want. Wayne told me he was going to do it. I have a right to come by and see how he's doing. Say, hey, Wayne, how you coming on that project? How's that coming along? You said you'd have it done by Thursday. You think you'll have it? And Wayne's going to say, gee, Bill, I ran into a problem. It's not going to be until Thursday night or Friday morning. Great, that's no problem. Or if it is a problem, now we get to talk about it. But if you don't do all three of those, you start presuming what will happen. Well, you think they know what you said. They don't know exactly what it is you did say, so they can't do it. And nobody's checking, so how in the hell do you know it ever got done? This is not complicated stuff, folks. This is really simple. You do those three things, and you won't have employee problems. Now, Harv is right. Employees can be a problem. They're not a pain in the neck. Sometimes they can be a hemorrhoid. But this is salve that'll make that hemorrhoid a lot better. Number 9. Create an environment where every employee thinks of it as my company. If you're ever standing in a checkout line in a grocery store and one of your employees or one or two or three people in front of you in line and they're talking to someone, you better hope you hear the word my in the sentence. Because if they say the company, or worse yet, the name, that means they're not owning any part of it. They are not in your company. But if they start calling it my company, that means you have them. That means they're happy, they're content, they're satisfied, they like what's going on. And you can do that so many ways. Employee recognition, weekly meetings, you can encourage initiative, you can reward mistakes. And you say, time out. We don't need to be stupid. No, what you really want is employees that'll make decisions. Harv said earlier, what you want is employees that'll take the burden off of you. Well, if employees are afraid to make a mistake, they're going to be afraid to make a decision. If they're afraid to make a decision, they're going to rely on you. If they're going to rely on you, you have to do all the work. Why in the hell did you hire them? So instead, you encourage them to make decisions, which mean on occasion they are going to make mistakes. And when they do, you should celebrate it. You should make a big deal out of it. You should laugh and giggle and cry when they're not looking. And it works. When they know they're not going to lose their job because they made a mistake, they will make a lot more decisions. And incentives, there's 1,000 things you can do for incentives. I don't need to share all those with you. Number 10, you praise in public, you reprimand in private. I had lunch with one of the people that is the owner of the Crown hotel chain. And while we were having dinner at one of the Crown hotels, his lunch came and it was some kind of a steak affair. And it was really prepared badly. And I could look over and see that it was prepared badly. And he called the waiter over and he asked the waiter to bring him one of those lids. You know, little hot lids like you get in room service. And he put it on there and he acknowledged that the food wasn't what he wanted. And so I said, well, Steve, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I'm going to go talk to the cook. I thought, well, that's appropriate. This is not done well or right. The cook should be talked to. So I finished eating my lunch while he's sitting there watching this German helmet kind of thing. And he gets all done, and he says, okay, well, let's go. And I said, well, are you going to go back to see the cook? Are you going to the kitchen? He goes, oh, no. I said, what are you going to tell the cook? He said, well, I'm going to take this back to my office, and I'm going to call the cook and have the cook come to my office. And I said, why would you do that? I mean, I'm not really that dumb. And he said, well, Bill, there's staff in the kitchen. He said, if I take this piece of crap into the kitchen, every staff member there is going to see it. And they're going to expect me to give this guy a reaming. And if I do, I'm going to have embarrassed him in front of his employees, the people I expect him to lead. And if I cut his legs off in front of his people, he'll never have their respect. So I need to do this, and I need to do it privately. So if you're looking for a company to buy stock in, that would be one. No, I don't own anything. One old crap wipes out 100 attaboys. You've heard that as an employee, where you're afraid to make a mistake because you can do 100 things right, but if you do one thing wrong, they'll have your head. Employees see the world the same way employers do. Think about it in reverse. You can give them 100 things. You can take them to Las Vegas. You can take them on a cruise. You can wrestle Hulk Hogan in front of them. You can wear a skirt. But if you embarrass them, humiliate them, or make them feel bad, they will forget quickly the good you have done. And they will remember the one old crap. And that's the thing that will forever be in their mind. And it would be in yours. Why do we think it wouldn't be in theirs? Does that make sense to you? And my last one is create superstars. I believe in this. Yes, they are a pain. Yes, they are a problem. Yes, they are high maintenance. But by God, they're high revenue too. And isn't that what we're here for? I mean, would you like to have a whole bunch of sissies working for you, not doing anything, but everybody saying kumbaya and doing that hug-it-free crap, but not make any money? Say, well, honey, we had another good day of everybody gotten along at the neighborhood, but we're going broke. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we want people who are problematic. They are troublemakers. They are mavericks. They are half-crazy people. Because those are the people who think outside the box and will make all the money for us. And if that's the worst thing we have to do is put up with a couple of crazies for the money, it's damn good wages. Right? And you already know the answer. Are they worth the trouble? Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to give you a little 2-minute drill that I'd like you to do. And then we're going to switch to the PowerPoint. I want you to write 3 things in your book. 3 things that you could do that cost you nothing for your employees. 3 things that will make your employees know you appreciate them or respect them or care about them that cost you nothing. I don't want you to take them to Las Vegas. I want you to tell them yourself, because then I'm going to have you share this with the people next to you. But right now, let's take a minute or two to write down 3 things that you would do for your employees. Now, if you are not an employer, then write down 3 things you wish your employer would. The second piece of this 2-hour presentation is to talk about raising capital. Anybody interested in raising money for your company? Okay. I have some experience with this. I have raised $3.1 billion from 116 different lenders in the last 10 years for privately held startup companies. Now let me say that again because it is a world's record. I say that because we challenged Business Week and Wall Street Journal and Think with Think magazine to find anybody who had done more during that same time period, and they surrendered with a giggle saying, no way. Raised $3.1 billion from 116 different lenders in the past 10 years, all for privately held startup companies. Now that's pretty powerful. And you can't do that unless you understand the system. I mean, anybody can get lucky. The blind pig will find an acorn once in a while, right? But to do something 116 times, at 116 different places, from little bitty money as low as $10,000 to as high as $451 million. And you say, well, time out, we're not going to be doing any of those for a long time. Maybe you won't. Maybe you will. But if you don't do the little ones, and you don't do the little ones right, you don't learn how to do the little ones, you never get to go do the big ones. Because this is a consecutive, sequential program. It always is. You borrow the little you need to take care of where you're at, and then you grow. And then you have to borrow more. And then you have to borrow more. When Kathy and I started on a kitchen table, we borrowed $13,000. And eventually we're borrowing $451 million in one transaction. One transaction. So to do that, and I say this honestly, we created a system. Because you can't do this by happenstance. You can't do it by Ouija board. You can't do it with a crystal ball. You can't do it with tea leaves. You can't do it by wishing and hoping. You have to understand some basic things in life. And again, you've already heard me say 3 different times so far in 4 hours, it ain't that complicated. It's real simple. All you have to do is understand how people think. In this case, you have to understand how the guy with the money thinks. He's got it, you want it. It doesn't matter whether you're borrowing money at the local credit union, a community bank, a national bank, a private bank, a merchant bank, an investment bank, from a venture capital, from a vulture capital, from an angel fund. It doesn't matter. They all think alike. They do. It's just the size of the loan they can and will make that separates them. And it's to whom they will lend it, and what region, what industry they will lend, and what their limits are on size and amount and type and kind. But that's all it is. But the thought process is exactly the same at every single institution. They all have the same expectation. So once you figure that out, this is easy. I can do it. So I know you guys can. Think about it. How often do you borrow money in your life? You borrowed money to buy a car. That wasn't hard. You had a car for collateral. You borrowed money to buy your house. That probably wasn't hard. You had a house for collateral. And most of you have gone to somewhere, probably to a bank, to try to borrow money for your business, and they laughed at you. And I said, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. We're not going to give you any money. And they threw you out on your ear, right? Pretty much the way it works. Because you aren't good at borrowing money. You're about as good at borrowing money as you are doing brain surgery. Because you've had about as much practice. You don't know how. It isn't that you're not capable of learning how. Nobody showed you. They just say, write a business plan and go to the bank. No, that's crap. That is not going to work. But this system does work. And I'm going to go through the next 8 slides really, really quick. The handout will have all this for you. This is the list of the 116 financial institutions that I have borrowed money from in the last 10 years. Now, the reason I'm showing this to you and making this available is for a couple of reasons. You will see some of the smallest financial institutions in the world, and you will see some of the largest financial institutions in the world, because you need to know both of them are real and possible. It also shows you that there really were 116 of them. And then it also shows you the third thing, which is equally important. If we get to talk about can I help you raise money, you at least know where I know where to look. And I have relationships. So let's get to the serious part. In business school versus us over here in the Gorilla Business School, and no, I'm not going to repeat the stuff we did last night, but there is a difference between us and them. In business school, when you ask that age-old question, can you start a business with little money? The answer is universally, no. They will tell you that in business school. They'll say you can't do it. They'll say an undercapitalized company is a calamity waiting to happen. They will say you cannot start a company from your kitchen table with 13,000 bucks. That's stupid. Gorilla Business School, we say absolutely. Because it doesn't matter. It matters a whole bunch of other things next of what do you do with the $13,000 you borrow, and how do you run the company, and how do you treat your employees, and how do you do all these other things that are every bit as important as money, but the money isn't the driver. Money is just a necessary thing that you have as part. It's the fuel for the machine. Good ideas can always get funded. That's a rule. It's an absolute rule. But again, if you go to business school and ask them, they will say, yeah, but sadly, most of them won't. So isn't that double talk? Isn't that double speak? Aren't they kind of talking out of both sides of their face, saying, yeah, you can, but no, it won't work? Guerrilla Business School, we think of it a little differently. We say every good idea that has the following components will get funded. Will get funded. Not maybe, not kinda, not sort of, not on a good day, not on every third Sunday, or not if you're in the right place at the right time and there's a full moon. No, there's a system. So if you have a good idea, follow the steps, you get funded. And here they are. These are the components. You need a good idea. It needs to be well thought out. It needs to be well written. It needs to be appropriately presented to the right lender. So let me get into all 5 of them. Good idea. Good idea is the hardest one of the 5. It is. And mostly, I can't help you with that one. Now, there are, in some conversations with some of the students I work with, I do, in fact, give some advice, suggestions, and recommendations based on some things that I've learned over the course of my life. But mostly, the good idea is your passion. It's the one thing that burns you. It's the one thing that wakes you up. It's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's the thing that makes you jump out of bed before the alarm clock goes off. It's a thing that you want to be when you grow up. That's your good idea. And you didn't come here to get a good idea. You came here because you have a good idea. Is there anybody in this room that doesn't already have a good idea? One. Okay. You and I, we're going to go commit suicide later. But I will find you a good idea. It is the hardest one of the bunch. It needs to be well thought out. And here are some of the things that you need to understand about well thought out. Do you know more than your lender about the business you're trying to borrow money for? And you say, well, of course I do. I've been a car salesman for 10 years and I want to open up a car dealership. Okay? You have 10 years worth of car selling experience, probably no car dealership owning experience, and that bank has probably been in the car lending business for 100 years. Now, which one of you knows more? You might know more than that pencil-necked little guy behind the desk, but the bank has institutional memory. You aren't dealing with the guy behind the desk. You're dealing with the institution. You're dealing with every loan they've ever made to that industry over the course of the history of that bank. And a lot of them were bad. And that they remember those. And so they know some things about the industry. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Because if they're even willing to lend you money, it's only because they think they understand the industry. And now they just need to understand the business. The business is you, the industry is it. And they already have a lot of knowledge. So in order to get the money from them, you have to be able to impress them, and you have to be able to do it to know that you know more than your lender. That just means you have to do some research. You have to do some work. Do you know the history of the industry? It isn't enough that you sold cars for 10 years, or you sold shoes for 10 years, or you did something else for 10 years. Do you really know the history of the industry? You should. Do you know your 5 primary competitors? Do you know the 5 people that are your biggest single threat in the new enterprise you're about to engage in? Your lender probably will. And if you don't, you're back behind the 8 ball again. Do you know 5 people or 5 companies that have failed in the business you want to be in? And that doesn't make it a bad business, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. But do you know 5 people or 5 companies that have failed at the very thing you want to go do? And you should, because you need to know why. Why did they fail? Why are they not in business? What did they do wrong? Here's your chance to go to school on them instead of the other way around. And knowing it will make you intelligent when you talk to your lender. These aren't hard things, folks. These are things you would have to do to run a business. Why not do it before you try to borrow the money to run the business? What is the most important aspect of your business? You say, well, what do you mean? What's the most important aspect? Well, there's a number of things that could be important. Is it service? Is it quality? Is it price? Is it convenience? Location? All of the above? Some of the above? Only one of the above? And it doesn't matter, except that you need to know. You need to know what's the most important characteristic of your business. And you can't know that unless you know who your competitors are and you know what's the most important characteristic of their business. And once you do, you can differentiate yourself. And if you can differentiate yourself, you have now given your customer a reason to come to you instead of to your competitor. And again, this is not rocket science. It's not difficult stuff. It needs to be well written. How you say what you say says a lot about you. When you're going to present your loan proposal to a lender, and you notice I'm not using the word bank, when you are going to submit your loan proposal to a lender to raise capital, you most assuredly are not going to do that verbally. You're not going to walk in and say, hey, I want some money for my company. I mean, if you do, you've just wasted time, because it's not going to happen. So it has to be a written instrument. It has to be a document. And it has to be a document for a couple of reasons. Because the guy you're talking to, the guy behind the desk, your first line, the person you're having this conversation with, doesn't have any money. He's a messenger. He can turn you down, he can say no, and he can tell you where to go. But he doesn't have any money. The people upstairs have money. And so if this is not well written, what he's taking upstairs is all they're ever going to see. And if you have written it poorly and haven't said what it is the people upstairs want to see, then you got some pencil neck guy behind a little bitty desk with no money crapping all over your deal. Because you know how it's going to work. He's going to walk upstairs and throw it on the boss's desk and say, well, I don't know if I'd do that one. Well, what are your chances? 0. Well, at least slim to grim. Should form trump substance? No, but it does. So we can sit here and complain all day long and say, well, damn it, that's not fair. It shouldn't have to be well written. Crap, that's a silly rule. I don't like that rule. Okay, be poor. I mean, we don't make these rules. They've got the money. You remember the old golden rule? The man with the gold makes the rules. They got the money. We want it. We got to suck up to get it. So there's an art to sucking up. I am an 8-quart milking machine when it comes to money. I am not going to quit until I get 8 quarts. That's just the way it works. Any of you guys that didn't grow up on a farm don't know what I just said, and that's probably okay. It needs to be appropriately presented, which means you ought to have an advisor or a consultant or somebody that's ever done one of these before help you. It's your first brain surgery. It's the first time you're going to surgically remove your appendix. It's the first time you're going to do something of great significance. Do you really want to do it alone? I mean, I could ask the question of how many people play golf, and their hands would probably go up, and I'd say, well, then, how many have ever taken a golf lesson? You say, gee, I'll hire an expert to teach me how to play golf, but I won't hire an expert to teach me how to fund my business. Or I could talk about a tennis coach, or I could talk about a life trainer, or I could talk about the guy that works down at the local gym to be your physical coach. We hire experts and coaches and people to help us all the time until it comes to our business, because the world has taught us we're supposed to do this by ourselves. Well, I already told you, I think the world is pretty stupid on occasion. And this is another one of those things. It's legitimate to ask for help from people who know how. So consultants, CPAs, advisors, there's people that do this for a living. They do it every day. They're good at it. They know how to do it. You don't. They do. Let them. You need to have good financials. And you say, well, time out. I don't even have a business. All I have is an idea. Fine. It's called pro forma. Pro forma. It means as if. It says, these are the numbers that I think I will be able to generate if the business does what I want it to when I think it will. And as long as it's clearly labeled as such, a projection, a pro forma, every lender understands that. And they know you don't know, and they know you're doing your best to guess correctly, and they are going to check your numbers as closely as they can, and they're probably going to discount them anytime they think they're a little hazy. That's their job. So you make them a little higher. And it works. And I'm not saying you should fudge the numbers, but you should know what they're going to do. They are going to cut them down a little bit. So you put down what it is you think you need to run your railroad, whatever your business enterprise is. The worst thing in the world you can do as a borrower is borrow less than you need. That is the world's worst mistake. You've walked into a lender and said, hey, this is what I need to go do, what I'm going to go do, and he believed you. He thought you were intelligent, thought you knew your business, thought you understood your industry. He made the decision, he gave you the money, and you come back 2 weeks later and say, I was just kidding. I was wrong, and so were you. Yes, sir. Pardon me?
3 years or 5 years?
It matters not. It depends on the industry. If you're doing something that's quick turnover, it could be 1 year. Literally. Or 5. It's industry specific. Okay? You need a board of advisors. I don't care if it's just you or you and your spouse that are in business today, and I don't care what the business is. If you're going to be raising money, you need a board of advisors, not a board of directors. A board of directors is a legal group of people that have responsibility and accountability and liability. And after Enron, Tyco, WorldCom, and the boys, most people don't want to be a director. But they will most assuredly become a member of your board of advisors. And you pick people to be on your board of advisors that are community leaders, that are civic leaders, that are politicians, that are people that are expert in your industry, that are people that your lender will be impressed with. Now you want people that know what it is you're doing and can help you because you want their brain. You want them to help advise you on what to do, when to do, where to do, and all those other to-dos. But you also are buying impression. So this isn't what I normally would show this, but this was one of my companies and one of the group of the board of advisors. U.S. senators, congressmen, governors, priests, rabbis, Chamber of Commerce leaders. I live in Oklahoma, so we had Mexicans, we had Indians, we had blacks, we had white guys. 2 white guys. And an attorney general. Because these were appropriate for the business that I was in at that moment. It was a finance business. It was an ugly, nasty finance business. They're called the B loan or the payday loan company business. You've heard of it? Where they charge 300 to 400% interest. Well, we changed that model too. We haven't talked about it because we don't have time. But in order to do that, I went out and got people that should never, ever, ever have their name associated with that industry because it's so bad. And by getting them to say Bill's doing a good job and boy, Bill's changing the world and yeah, there wasn't a bank that wouldn't throw money at me. They're saying, wow, these are names, these are people. Now, they don't need to be that big. I have had some luck and some success in my life, so I can attract those kind of people. You might get your local accountant, your local lawyer, your local haberdasher. It makes no difference. Somebody that at least your lender will say, okay, you're not alone. You're not by yourself. There's some people working with you. And as you get 2 or 3 of those people, you find more. Remember last night I said if you have a goal and you tell people one of 3 things can happen. I remember what I said, and that's one of the things I said. And I said that one of the 3 things will be that they will help you. So when I go to them and say, I want to kick ass and change an industry, pardon me? No, they do it for nothing. Isn't that great? What a country. See, raising money is easy if you figure it out. It's just a system. You just got to get it in your head. You need a good website. Do you really need a good website to run a good business? Absolutely not. Should you have one to impress your lender? Absolutely yes. Even if it doesn't work. I'm only slightly joking, because they will only check it once, because they think you're supposed to have one. Give them one. We don't have to make the rules. We just have to work within the rules. These are things they're going to want to see. Show it to them. Public relations. That's really what this piece is all about. These are my board of advisors, but then I took out a full-page ad. This is an advertisement. Full page, Tulsa World, my hometown. Now, what do you think that did for my business the next day? It skyrocketed. Absolutely skyrocketed. Yes, ma'am. Somebody's going to have to repeat the question so I can hear it. Yes, minimum once a month. Minimum once a month. They need to feel involved. Hey, I couldn't hear the question. I just answered what I thought would be a good answer. So make up the question. I did. No, the question was, and somebody was kind enough to tell me. Thank you. How often should you have your meeting with your board of advisors? And my answer, thank God I made it the right one, was that you ought to do it minimum once a month. Any more than that, and you're burdening these people. And you don't want to burden these people. They're giving you their good name. They're giving you their expertise. They're giving you their assistance. You need to suck up really, really big to these people because you appreciate them, as you should. And you need to cram for the exam. I work with people all the time raising money. That's kind of what I do. And they don't know, come here from Sikkim, about the stuff. I say, come on, you're supposed to know about your business, you're supposed to know about the industry, you're supposed to know about your competitors, you're supposed to know about your financials, you're supposed to know all this stuff. Well, remember when you were in school and you'd take a test and you'd have to just cram for the exam? Now, you'd forget it all the next day. Test was over, that was okay. So it is with the bank or the lender. You can forget most of it the next day, but you got to look real good on game day. The day you're down there pitching the deal, you need to know what it is you're talking about. You need to be able to answer anything. Anything. If they ask you who Dick Cheney's hunting buddy was, you should know. Because that would impress them. That you're smart, that you read the paper, you pay attention. And I'm not joking too much. You should be aware of public events. You should be aware of things going on in the world. You should be cognizant of what's happening around you. Yes, you need to know your business. But we live in a world where things move. And if you aren't aware of the things that are moving, maybe they impact your business and you just don't know it yet. And wouldn't it be good to know that? It needs to be to the right type of lender. And I don't know which of these is the most common mistake, but I think this ranks right up there. And that's why I've been refraining from talking about going to the bank, because most of you would. And banks are the last place you probably really ought to go. Depending, and I shouldn't say that. Depending on the kind of type of business you're in and the kind of type of money you want to borrow, maybe a bank would be appropriate. There are times when they are. But as you'll see on some of the subsequent slides, and I don't want to steal my own thunder, so let me just kind of go right through here. The first and most important rule is don't waste your time trying to sell to a guy that can't buy what you're selling. So if you're wanting to do a real estate deal, you want to buy an apartment complex because you want to provide low rent housing for people or something, who cares why? You want to buy that. And if you're going to go to a lending institution that doesn't make real estate loans, you're not going to do real well. If you want to open up a pizza shop or a franchise or pick a business and you go to a place that doesn't do that, you're not going to get the money because lending institutions specialize in industries. That way they can get this thing we call institutional knowledge about an industry where they can know everybody in the industry. because they're aware of who's doing what. And so if you go to the wrong one, you're wasting time. Well, you say, well, how do I know the right one? This goes back to hiring somebody that knows what in the heck they're doing, because they can show you. This is not hard. And without knowing your business, the answers aren't as varied as the people in this room. I didn't go to 116 lenders because I was trying to set a marathon. I went to 116 lenders because I needed to raise the kind of type of money for the kind of type of deals that I was putting together. It would have been inappropriate to go to 20 of them. I would have been turned down on a lot of those transactions for the very same well thought out, well written, appropriately presented, and it would have failed because I was going to the wrong place. So going to the right place is really important. This loan proposal, this document, this written instrument that I'm telling you you need to take to the lender. When you go to business school, they will tell you it only needs to contain 3 things. How much, for what purpose, and how to be repaid. That's what they tell you. In business school, the same place where I told you they'd make you read a big book, now they make it real short. They say, loan proposal. You need to tell your lender how much, for what purpose, and how it's going to be repaid. And you go, oh, gee, thank you, teacher. That's really important. And they're wrong. Most people teaching in a business school never borrowed any money. They haven't. They're good people. They're smart people. They're a lot smarter than us, but they never borrowed money. They went to school and got a good job at teaching. And that's what they will do all of their life. And now they're going to tell us how to run a business, how to start a business, how to finance a business. Quit it. Guerrilla business school. We understand reality. This loan proposal document is the most important document you'll ever get your lender. It's probably the most important document you'll ever write in your lifetime. It is more important than your last will and testament. It is more important than a prenup. Because if you do this one right, you have to write a prenup. You will make money. If you're poor, nobody cares. The purpose of the lending proposal is to make your lender a salesman. You don't get to go upstairs with him when he carries your mail. Only your mail goes upstairs. So you want that loan proposal to be everything you want the people upstairs to think about and to consider before they say no. And you want to make sure that you've got enough stuff in there that they should say yes. Because you can't count on this pencil neck to be your champion. We're talking about raising millions of dollars for deals. So what should you be willing to pay? And I'm not making up a number. That's for you to do. How important is it? This loan proposal needs to be professionally looking. And then we're back to the substance thing. Do cosmetics really matter? Yes, they do. Should they? No. But do they? Yeah. Remember, you're getting a stodgy old loan committee. Now think of the loan committee for just a second. These are the people upstairs. They have all this money in the vault, and they have more people at the front door trying to borrow it than they have money in the vault. Now, we've all seen these Ditech commercials and other real estate commercials where the fantasy is a husband and wife are sitting at the kitchen table and all these lenders are scrapping for them outside the door, waiting in the vestibule and sitting on the lawn. You've seen those commercials, right? You're going to say, by God, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I'm the only guy that's seen those commercials. Okay, thank you. We both were smoking bad stuff at the same time, yeah. They have alternatives, places to put this money. And so here you are back to the bear hunting thing again. You have to be better than the other guys who are trying to borrow that money from them. You don't have to be best, you have to be better. So your paper needs to look good. You ought not do it on a legal pad. It ought not have one of the little plastic sheaths that you did your term paper in when you were in high school. It ought to look professional. You can go to a printing shop and say, I want my cover of my logo or my picture or the picture of my office, and I want it on hard, stiff, number 14 paper. cardboard essentially, but white. They'll do you a nice cover. They'll bind it for you. They'll put perfect binding on it where it lays flat and opens nicely. It looks like a book. Costs $30. And what do you get? An impressed lender. Because he's used to seeing stuff coming in a 3-ring binder or one of those little plastic things, and that says something about you. It says you're willing to do it professionally. Doesn't that give a lender comfort? Of course it does. Remember, the whole trick is just one thing. Think like they do. If you think like they do, you'll know what they want. If you know what they want, then it's just a question of how do you give it to them, and it's really simple. This loan proposal needs to have attachments, and this is where I really differ with some people who talk about how to write business plans, and this is professional, my opinion. I could be wrong. The other people could be right. You have the right to listen to anybody you choose to, and I don't care if it's not me. But I would never submit a lending proposal without these 2 attachments. I want the entire business plan. Remember, we have a pencil neck sitting behind the desk who's going to deliver our mail. You get one shot to deliver everything you want in front of that loan committee. So I want the entire business plan, which talks, and I'm not going to go through this tonight. Quality management, it's going to talk about your staff, it's going to talk about your external professionals, it's going to talk about your advisory board, it's going to have a piece about your marketing plan. Now you're going to get a copy of this, so don't panic, okay? You're going to have a staffing plan in there, you're going to have your strategies and your contingencies. That's a good business plan. That shows them you've thought about all the stuff that can go bump in the night. That says you know how you're going to do what it is you want to do with their money. And that's the most important thing to them. Do you know what you're going to do with their money? It also should contain a personal commitment. How much skin in the game are you donating to this thing? Any? And if they're putting in a penny, the business plan needs to say that. It makes the banker feel warm and fuzzy when you're putting some of yours in. Outside capital, if you have any investors, you have anybody else contributing to this new enterprise, the lenders love to hear that. That just means they've hedged their risk. Instead of lending you 100 cents of the dollar you need, maybe they only have to lend you 80 cents of the dollar you need. And they get a perfected performing security agreement. They get paid first. Now, you've given them an opportunity for them to lend you money. The other attachments, policies and procedures. So what are policies and procedures? Policies and procedures for any company are a written document that tell you how to run your business. It tells you how the receptionist answers the telephone. What does she say? Why does she say it the way she says it? What does she say if they say this? It tells you how every job is being done and how it ought to be performed. Now you need one of those so you don't have to retrain every single new employee from scratch every single time you hire one. Because if you have a written policy and procedure, you now say, Wayne, this is the job I want you to do. Here are the steps. These are the things I'm going to have you do. This is what time you have to come in. This is what time you get to leave. This is when you get to go to lunch. And here's how many step functions you have to do. Understand? Oh, yes, I do. Thank you very much. Now Wayne knows exactly what Wayne has to do to make me happy. Policy and procedure. You should have them anyhow. I want people to have them when they borrow money. Because what does it say? It says you're ready. You're ready to do business. You understand the phone is going to ring and you know what you're going to say. You understand the job has to be done and you know how to go about doing it. Now you're impressing the lender all the more. I want also to see attached training manuals. You say, God, this guy's really anal. I am. 116 transactions, $3.1 billion, 10 years, privately held companies, all startups. I'm damn anal. So are lenders. So it isn't about us. Do I really like doing any of this stuff? No. I like to be the guy that rides a Harley and wears a tattoo. I don't like being anal. But they got the money. So you create a training manual. The training manual says this is how we want all people to do all jobs. So that when we do hire new people in, we don't have to sit there and go, yeah, I think you're supposed, no, I don't, no. Hey, what do we do when? Training manual is the answer. Will lenders expect to see this? Absolutely not. What have you just done by attaching it? You've blown away the competition. And that's the only thing you have to worry about. They have money, they want to lend it. They have too many people to lend it to. You want to be number one. That's all you want. You think like they think. Training manuals tell them, you're prepared. You're prepared to grow. And that's what bankers really fear. Wild-eyed entrepreneurs like us that'll grow a company crazily and then it'll crash because we weren't prepared, we weren't ready. We couldn't manage it, a word they use, because we didn't know what we were biting off. And by having good policies and procedures and good training manuals, you've taken away that risk. Because that's exactly what the people upstairs are going to ask the pencil neck when the pencil neck comes upstairs. Well, what happens if they are successful? Now what happens if they fail? That isn't the first question. The first question usually is, what happens if they're successful? Will they grow? Do they want to grow? And lenders kind of do that because, remember, they just want their money back. They don't want you to get rich. They don't care that you get rich. They don't get any. They just want their money back. They're just worried about security. I'm going to have to whiz through these really, really quick because we're running out of time. And again, these are part of the handout. And I've given you 20 years worth of reasons loans are rejected. Because sometimes knowing the negative is every bit as good as knowing the positive. If you know what to avoid, by reverse, you kind of learn what you should be doing. And so don't bother trying to write these down. The handout will be most beneficial. There are a whole group of them under different categories. The first category is general management. The second is operations. The third is finance. Fourth is marketing. And then we get to a couple things I do want to talk about. There are so many sources of capital, and you get to pick which ones you go to where you choose to borrow the funds you're going to need to run your business. That's a prerogative. That's a choice you get to make. So you need to think intelligently and wisely about why did you pick the one you picked. Because again, if you pick the wrong one, it's like, that old shell game. You lift it up and there's no P under it, you lose. What you want to do is make sure you always pick up the shell that has a P under it. You always know who's got the money for the kind of deal you're trying to do. Once you made that decision, and here is how you end up sometimes having to make this decision, what are you prepared to give up to get what it is you want? And you say, well, gee, I only want to pay them a slight interest rate. People in hell want ice water. Maybe you can't have that. So you have to think, what is important? What would I be willing to give up to get what it is I want? And I'm not telling you to be stupid, but I'm telling you to be flexible. I'm telling you to think that, you have to think outside the box too. And so you say, okay, well, if I go to a lender like they're called a bank, they're only going to charge me a little bit of interest, but banks don't lend money to people who need money. Think about that, because it's a truism. Banks don't lend money to people that need money. They lend money to people that don't need money. So if you walk in and need some, they're not going to give it to you. But if you're already rich and go to a bank, they'll love to see you. Oh, what's your new business? What are you going to do now? Oh, let me help you. Why? Because they're going to get a personal guarantee for all the money you otherwise have. They get to double down. So maybe you end up going to a merchant bank or a private bank or an investment bank or a venture capital or a vulture capital, and there's a difference. Not just in the way they spell, some circle over a dead body way too long. And then last but not least, the one I recommend to everybody, it's called angel funds. Angel funds are people who have been successful and have made a lot of money and understand you because they used to do what you do. They used to worry about how in the hell they're going to make payroll. They used to worry about how they're going to grow their business. And these people recognize and appreciate a fellow entrepreneur. April 18, there is a meeting of the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation in New York City. 5,000 angel fund representatives will be in that building. Tom Walker, a kid from Tulsa, Oklahoma, my hometown, is chairing that meeting. I have borrowed from 32 of those people already. That's where the money is. The Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation is the largest entrepreneurial organization in the world. They created the angel fund concept. These are now privately held companies that come to this organization. The Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation are the people that sponsor the National Entrepreneur of the Year contest, the contest that I won. They are the people who sponsor the National Entrepreneur Hall of Fame, where I have been inducted. They also sponsor the list of the 100 entrepreneurs for the last 100 years, and they put me in it. I don't want to brag, but I like those guys, and I think they like me. And that's where you want to borrow money, if you can, if you qualify, if you're good enough, if you have a business plan that will work, because those people won't take your first male-born child. They will charge you a reasonable interest rate. They may even want some equity in the deal, but that's a variable. That's a negotiable. All things are negotiable once you get away from a bank. Banks don't negotiate because they're banks. Remember, they don't make loans to people that need the money, so they don't have to negotiate. But these other people will be happy to negotiate. And you can hire people to help you negotiate, too. There are people that do that for a living. Thank you very much. Thank you.